Welcome to the Seller Roundtable e-commerce coaching and business strategies with Andy Arnott and Amy Wees.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Andy Arnott with
Amy Wees.
And this is Seller Roundtable number 111. And we are super happy to have Brian Johnson on. Brian, thank you so much for being here.
Glad to be here. This is going to be fun.
I can't believe it's taken this long. This is your first appearance, right?
It is. Yeah.
I'm going to punish myself later for taking so long to invite you on. Really appreciate you being here.
Yeah. No, I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
So, Brian, we always like to get a little bit of background on our guests. You know, people always want to know kind of the journey to where you are today. So if you can give us, go as deep or as not deep as you want in terms of, you know, maybe where you're born, grew up, past jobs, hard knocks, you know, kind of the journey till today. Feel free to take as long or as little as you like.
Okay. All right. So here's the edited version. I was born as a small child. No, I was actually, I was born and raised outside of Portland, Oregon, which I happen to be at right now, this week, which for those of you who are up in this area, you know, some recent bad weather. So as far as really hot weather, right, across the country, but yeah, I'm actually based out of, I'm near San Antonio, down in Amy Wees country. And so that is where I've been down in the South for about 20 years. The last 14 years, I've been in the e-commerce game. I spent the early part of my careers over in Fortune 500 tech. And then the last 14 years, I've been e-commerce, self-employed, and the last 6 years in the Amazon space, primarily focusing in on a topic that had a huge gap, and that was Amazon advertising. And that provided me a number of opportunities to, I guess, kind of like stand up and say like, okay, if I don't know the answer, I'm going to go get it. And that's kind of the habit that I always provided. And people just kept on coming and asking for more and more, you know, as far as more and more advice and more tools, more and more resources and everything. And so that led to a number of companies, a number of projects that included PPC Scope, which was an Amazon advertising software, sponsored Products Academy 1, 2, and 3. So we did that for about 3 of those across 4 years. And then, of course, my flagship advertising agency, Canopy Management. And Canopy Management has now grown. We have, I'm not sure as far as I know we're currently managing over $1 billion in Amazon revenue across our clients. And it takes, I want to say we have about 50 to 55 staff on our team around the world in order to manage all that. So it is, it's been quite the journey as far as trying to get it to that point. And it certainly had many points along the way where, you know, frankly, you know, you always have setbacks, you always have pain, but it's the pain that kind of like sharpens the blade, right? That makes it better, you know, moving forward. And so enough of that. And surrounding myself with people who are like me, who wanted to experiment, who wanted to do the research and the development, and like, hey, what if we could do this? That kind of culture within the company continues to have us on the bleeding edge, if you will, as far as advertising technology, and something that I've gotten very passionate about in line with Amy. And that, of course, is speaking to the target audience, really identifying who you're speaking to, actually crafting your messaging so that you can not only attract and differentiate your product from competitors, craft your message to your target audience, and of course, increase conversion rates. So that is something that I lead with. I'm known for Amazon advertising, both PPC and DSP, but I'm probably even more passionate about getting the messaging right and getting all these millions of product listings on Amazon corrected from what they are now.
Yes.
Because most people are doing it wrong, you know.
That's so true. It's so true. You know, that's just wonderful to hear, because there are so many PPC agencies out there that are happy to take your money and don't even really look at your listing. And, you know, it's like, why would you run ads if they're not going to convert? So I love that. Yay.
Yep. So true. So true.
Yeah, that's absolutely the foundation, right? That's what Amy and I say. It's always like the bad listing. If you start with a bad listing, it's like a deck of cards, right? It's not gonna stand up to the test of time.
Right.
One thing I want to get into, Ryan, and we usually wait for this, but what I've realized is in the past, like every time we ask these Q4 questions, like because there's that delay that comes between the posting of the podcast, the editing, and all that. It's usually like December, 31st by the time the episode finally comes out. So, a lot of people don't realize, but when you're planning for Q4, I mean, it really starts kind of, July, August time is when the really successful people, successful companies in Q4, that's when they start planning. So what are some tactics this year? Because I know it kind of evolves every single year. Starting right now is when people are starting to kind of craft the plan, the strategy for Q4 in terms of Amazon advertising, listings, reviews. Kind of all the different facets of getting that listing moving before the prime shopping season. So, are you doing anything differently this year compared to last year in Q4? And what are some kind of things you can start looking at, planning at, kind of crafting the strategy for Q4?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely changes every year. It has to, because the platform evolves, the competition evolves, the strategy evolves, and of course, let's go ahead and throw in pandemics and civil riots and all kinds of stuff here just for fun. This year, certainly with 2021, between Prime Day and 2 weeks prior to Cyber Week, Black Friday, Cyber Monday. That is when we're pretty heavy as far as experiments. Now, traditionally, summers are going to have lower traffic. Amazon advertises less. They draw the traffic, they draw shoppers, fewer shoppers onto the platform during the summer, because that's when a lot of vacations occur. This year is going to be interesting because it's a kind of combination of people have adapted to working at home more regularly and being at home, but then certainly a lot of people around the world, of course, have been just chomping at the bit to get outside the house, right? Like get out in the field, go camping, go somewhere, right? And so there's quite a few family vacations, but it is not the traditional family vacation where it's like, oh, my kids are out of school and therefore we're going to go take a trip that we planned, 6 months ago. There's a whole lot of like weekend impromptu, hey, let's jump in the RV and go down to the beach, or let's go see if we can find an Airbnb. And I happen to be in both of those spaces, but this year is I would say in the United States, it's going to be different than other marketplaces that are still a lot more locked down. India is an example, completely opposite contrast to what's going on in the United States. But at the same time the shopping is either going to be seasonal during the summer, or it's going to be experimental. In other words, the shopping is not experimental. In other words, the shoppers are going to be looking for seasonal products that are appropriate for seasonal, hiking, camping, barbecue, bug repellent, heat stroke blankets, whatever the case is. And so you still have to market, tune advertising and tune your listings in order to market to the audience that's currently shopping for your product in this season, where it's an on season for your product. If primarily fourth quarter Christmas is typically the hottest time, the peak season for your product, then what you should be doing right now is doing experiments, doing testing, checking to see how can I be aggressive in my advertising right now, just in order to kind of prove it out. Even though the search volume and the purchase volume, the search volume is going to be lower and the conversion rates are going to be lower, this is still the time, the season, in order to be doing your testing. Because when you get to about 2 weeks prior to Cyber Week, you're going to want to pull that back, because just like the 2 weeks prior to Prime Day, the conversion rates are going to drop like a rock. They're going to cut in half, right? And so any kind of work that you do right now when it comes to listing optimization, when it comes to ad tuning that you do during the summer, is going to have a compounding effect when you get into actual fourth quarter, when the traffic comes back, when Amazon is fully invested in advertising to bring the shoppers back onto the platform. That's going to be, and the conversion rates start going up for the holiday season. And hopefully we have a more traditional holiday shopping season this year. We'll see. I mean, it's kind of anybody's guess. We saw some recovery in 2020's Christmas holiday season, but then we had shipping logistics. We're still going to have shipping and inventory logistic problems going into fourth quarter this year, but I think that the shoppers themselves are going to try. They want to get back to normal. They want to get back to something where it's like, oh, I always do this time of year. I always, go shopping for my family. For those who celebrate the holidays, and so ideally, we're going to see a definite uptick. Maybe not back to the levels of 2019, but I would say pretty close to it. I would say maybe on par with 2019, not necessarily exceeding 2019. 2020, of course, was a recovery from a year of COVID, right?
Yeah. The other interesting thing is going to be, if this big bad scary Delta variant gets publicized, and and the normal flu comes back this year, if all of a sudden there's going to be this new panic, right? So that's I think kind of where you're saying, like, depending on pandemic wise, we're still in this zone where, who knows what's going to happen in terms of logistics. And, maybe they figure out that, that the virus came from the lab leak, and now all of a sudden the whole world is, kind of not, I don't want to say at war, but at odds with China. Right. And then what happens? So there's so many kind of crazy variants and crazy things going on right now that it's going to be really hard to follow that.
Yeah, I would say that, one of the things that we can rely on with shoppers and sellers. So shoppers are going to look for a bargain. That's going to demand sourcing from places like China, Taiwan, India. There's going to be shipping logistics. So that's one of the things that we can count on from shoppers. One of the things that we can count on from sellers is laziness. Sorry, but as humans, we gravitate towards convenient, toward like what's the minimum I can get away with. That provides a huge opportunity typically for the clients of agencies and consultants like ourselves who are out there actually trying to make a difference, trying to go, full force in one direction with the best practices that are currently working. That gives a huge competitive advantage. And so that's, while I'm still teaching out in the community as far as, hey, here's some things that you should be doing, you're still only going to get 5% of the sellers and the brands that actually implement any of that or implement it consistently. For those of you who are action takers, who do actually take action to implement, to try to do more than the next guy, you're going to have a competitive advantage simply because you're doing, even if you do 10, 20% more than the next guy, you'll have a significant competitive advantage on Amazon.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's going to be really interesting because, like you said, Amazon is becoming more price sensitive by the day. But on the flip side to that, stuff like, you were saying logistics, getting a container from China now, some people are saying it's 3 times what they were paying last year. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Are sellers going to start raising prices, which I think some of them already have, how that's going to affect the shopping season, right? Because if, the $9, little wood doodad that you could get your mom last year is maybe $18 this year, or something like that. So that, yeah. I think you make a lot of good points there. It's going to be a lot of moving parts, but, one of those things that people never think about is if people are like, oh, I don't want to, pay for a warehouse or a storage unit or whatever scale you are, I don't want to do that because I don't want that extra expense per month. But if you look at, if you ship something right now during the summer season, it's probably going to be half price to what you would do during the holiday season, which a lot of people wait till, late August, September, things like that. If you get a warehouse now and you order now, you're going to save money in that logistics, and your chances of that inventory getting stuck at customs or your barge getting, beached in the Suez Canal or, something like that, those
blocked by protesters.
Right. You're minimizing your risk there. So, all of those things are something to really, keep your eye on. Now let's get back to the core of PPC. One of the, I guess it's still relatively new in terms of what's been available, for years now, but video ads, I still see, so many sellers not even deploying a single video ad, which you can do on Canva now in like 5 minutes, even if it's a terrible ad, the price that you're paying for those conversions are relatively low if you do a somewhat passable video. Any tips or, anything that you can share with people, tactics on using those video ads to really maximize your PPC sales?
Yeah, exactly what you're saying. As far as like, it's really easy to create those videos. You've got Canva, you've got Animoto, you've got Vidnami. These are all tools that are available in order to make that initial ad. That initial ad is really very simple. Make a 15-second ad. Highlight in big bold text, like large text, what your three key benefits are, and basically have them kind of drift across the screen one at a time with some lifestyle images that include your product. It's not that complicated. It really shouldn't. You don't need to hire somebody out. You don't even need Fiverr. You could do it yourself, honestly. Even if you get it wrong, get it up there. If you've got access to, in order to publish at least one video, you can put three. If you're brand registered, you can put three on your three videos onto your listing. But make sure that that first one that you have is the top three benefits. What's in it for me of buying and using your product? What am I going to get out of it? Don't care about what the features are. Tell me what's in it for me. What's the benefit to me if I purchase and use your product? And mix it in. Tell people what that is. Have some kind of a little bit of motion. Doesn't have to be crazy. Just a little bit of motion, a little bit of background, music, and use that as a 15-second ad in your sponsored brand video ads, and just get it tested this summer and start really identifying what that is. Now, if you are using certainly keyword targeting, you can do both keyword and product targeting with sponsored brand video ads. I would do both. Certainly on the product targeting, you're typically targeting the weaker, or post Prime Day, you're the out of stock. You're also going to get out of stock when it comes to Cyber Week as well. Certainly take a look at any kind of competitor that normally gets a lot of traffic because they sell, they're a bigger, they're the bigger elephant in the room that you got to tackle there, whatever analogy you want to use there. But if they go out of stock, Amazon is probably still sending traffic. Even Amazon's own brands and their products go out of stock. You get that was an example of one that I showed to somebody last week. There was an Amazon Basics in their specific subcategory that was out of stock, but that Amazon is still driving a whole bunch of product because it says like, oh, we can ship this to you in 2 weeks. It'll be back in stock. People want it now. It's like what are my alternatives? Even if you never had the review rating or the price point in order to compete with a listing like that in the past, now you do when they're out of stock. And then of course, from a keyword standpoint, again, use some of the classic, or I shouldn't say classic, but some of the current best practices when it comes to, go for, targeting, exact match, phrase match. If you're going to do broad match on a sponsored brand ad, make sure that you're using the modifiers. Modifiers is important to learn if you're not familiar with that. And then go for, make sure that you're mixing in a bunch of long tail, multiple word, 4 to 6 keyword phrases in order to draw the traffic. It takes a little bit of while to warm up. So don't wait until the last minute to start testing. Start testing as soon as you can. Have something out, get your video done in a day, get your ad up the next day. Start testing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I still see, a lot of the clients I'm bringing on now, they don't even have a single video ad. And like you were saying, using Canva or something like that, you can do multiple versions. What people don't realize is you can copy that Canva video that you just did, change the text a little bit, deploy, and then see which one, it's kind of like a little mini A/B test. You pick the best one, you try that again, and you just keep refining until you really get that. And then, when Q4 rolls around, you're now ready, like Brian was saying, to really get those conversions, get that budget cranked up, and just keep pushing those sales.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Ryan, any new features? I know that, I remember back in the day, it was funny because, Amazon for like multiple years, it was like, keyword targeting, then it was like auto, then it was like every couple of years, there'd be like these new features. Nowadays, it's just fast and furious on new features. Any new features? We talked about video. That's, I guess, relatively new. Any new features that have been released lately that a lot of people might not know about that's working really well for you?
Yeah, well, I would say that the new features, a lot of the new features have to do with some of the data that's provided, some of the reporting that's available. Some of that is kind of secondary information, like having, budget, knowing whether or not how often you are in budget And, that's cool. That's interesting. You should check that. You should certainly be monitoring that around, peak seasons like Prime Day, like, the Cyber Week, the holidays. But that's more of an infrequent check. Some of honestly, it's kind of the back to basics. If you have, your sponsored, your product display ads, as far as your product targeting ads, where you're targeting ASINs, competing ASINs or related products, that works well, very well. If you are doing sponsored brand video ad, as you said, it's kind of back to basics. If you don't have it, get it, put it in place, start testing it. Most of what we see anytime we take on a new client at Canopy Management, we look, and I would say 95%, it's a really high number, probably 95% of the time, the feedback that we get when we have that first kind of audit interview is, look, you're not even defending your own real estate. You're basically allowing your competitors to put a for sale sign in your front yard, and you're not doing anything about it. You're not even putting up any kind of resistance. So a lot of times is just having the ad type coverage. Most sellers, most brands don't realize that it's no longer, it's like, oh, there's 4 different ad types, whatever. There's over 30 different ad placements and ad tactics today. Most people are not even aware there's even half of that, when we ask them. And so there's a lot of opportunity. You don't have to do everything. You don't have to do category targeting. There's very specific ways to do category targeting ads. There's certain ways that you qualify product targeting ads. It's mostly, in that case, you're basically running product targeting ads that are kind of picking off your weaker competitors, either those that have a lower star rating, those that have a price point that's either $10 higher or $10 lower, which means 2 different ads. Those that don't have prime shipping. Those are all opportunities for you to step in and win the customer, because you're providing something that they're not seeing the value in the competitors that you're running against. I think when it comes, yep, go ahead.
Well, I mean, my next question for you is all about placement. And I think that so many people just kind of, and I don't just think I know this, because I get clients that come to me all the time and they're saying, my PPC isn't working. I'm paying too much money. I don't know what to do. And I get in there and look at it and I'm like, okay, well, what do we have going on here? And then my first thing after I look at, their dashboard is I go and I look at Amazon and I'm like, okay, where is your placement? What are you doing? What's your overall ad strategy, right? Because are you just setting up campaigns blindly and then going, I don't know why I'm spending so much money, but you're not checking your placement. So my favorite thing to do is go into the placements tab and go, okay, hey, look at you at top of search, you're here. And then, like you said, Brian, as far as the different types of placements, I can't tell you, and I know I can tell you because you probably see the same thing, but so many people are registered brands and I just want to scream at them like, why are you only using sponsored product ads? Like, you have all these awesome placements. You could headline search ads, video ads. You can be right in the buy box with the display ads. Like, what are you doing? There's no strategy behind the ads. So can we talk about that? Can we talk about what kind of strategy should people be using for placements, and what are the best placements and ad types for that?
Honestly, if for somebody who's like, man, this is just, I don't have time to do all this. I don't know how to set up. I mean, if you want to boil it down to the most simple ad strategy that is going to still give you a significant competitive advantage over your competitors, is turn on every ad type you got access to, put in a low bid. That's it.
Cover all.
You're basically, it's like, call it a safety net. I call some of them like gold panning campaigns, but whether it is a sponsored product, sponsored brand, sponsored display, automatic campaign, keyword targeting campaign, product targeting campaign, category targeting, you could turn all of those on, put in, a small budget, $15, $20 on each campaign, just set a low bid, set a bid that is, half of your, whatever your break-even bid, if you've calculated that, hopefully you have, for your products, but go in with a low bid. Simply just being
And would
in
you
a lot
use
of
a
places.
would you use a fixed bidding strategy for that, or would you do like dynamic down? What
Yeah.
would, because I've
Here's what I
noticed
say.
with
There's
those
always a better
now,
practice, right? There's
yeah.
always a better way of doing things. And yes, I do frequently recommend that. That's kind of a troubleshooting thing that I advise on a regular basis is when you're first launching a campaign. If you have a campaign bidding strategy, yes, start out with fixed bid because that there's a certain way that basically overcomes Amazon's doubt about what you're running. They'll actually show your ad. That's kind of a rabbit hole I can get into, but at the most simplest thing is go out there, turn on as many ad types as you can, and just put it at a really low bid. And yeah, some of those campaigns won't do anything. They won't have any impressions, or they got really low impressions. But what you're doing is you're essentially setting up a kind of a safety net framework that you will have an ad. If Amazon sees the opportunity where you have a whole bunch of competition that is not running that particular ad type, your ad will show, it'll show at that low bid. And basically you'll have a low ACoS ad that will run when everybody else fails. That's kind of what I'm saying with these kind of ads is you don't have to do everything perfect. You do want a lot of different kinds of ad types coverage there, even with a low bid, because what you want to do is you want to look for any opportunity to take advantage of competitors who simply just stumble. They run out of stock. They run out of budget. They're not running all the ads. And I can guarantee you is that most brands, most product listings that are being advertised on Amazon, they're only using about 15 to 20% of the ad types that are available. So if you simply just do a little bit more.
Most are using exact match too, like only
most are using exact match. Most are using sponsored product
I'm like,
ads.
you're missing all this opportunity, right?
Yep.
But yeah,
and it's because they've been taught that, the advice that's flying out there, some of it is dated, some of it has been wrong since the start, but somebody had a louder voice than like somebody like me or you who says like oh, what are you doing? So there are better practices. You can, there's people like us who spend our lives basically, every waking hour, knowing every little detail, every little exception. You don't have to be at our level, but you do want to at least try to make some kind of a presence through your advertising so that you're defending some of the real estate. So you're not making it cheap for a competitor to run their ad on your product listing. 1, 2 is when the opportunity is right, Amazon will show your ad because your competition dropped the ball and they're not running ads. And 3, of course, is I'm going to go back and beat this drum again, is if your product listings are not grabbing the attention of the shopper in your main image, and your title and your content of your product listing is not speaking to what's in it for the shopper to own your product. If you're just stuffing a bunch of keywords in there in hopes that you're going to get magically ranked for some high search volume, guess what? You're not. It just doesn't work that way. But you can gain the attention of a shopper, whether that is through ads or through organic ranking. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, it's still your image and your title that is going to grab the attention and pull that shopper into your product listing. If you don't even accomplish that first thing where they walk in your front door in the first place, you're not going to convert them because they're not even in your shop.
Right.
So, yeah.
Cool.
So, main image and title optimization for sure. And then second would be getting a decent ad coverage even at a low bid.
Thanks for tuning in to part 1 of this episode. Join us every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for live Q&A and bonus content after the recording at sellerroundtable.com. Sponsored by the ultimate software tool for Amazon sales and growth, sellerseo.com and amazingathome.com.